This isn't a Michael Bay movie. 3:14 a.m. A massive explosion from the ocean floor sent one of the planet's most modern fleets reeling. The explosive charge instantly vaporized into a sphere of extreme pressure, collapsing in an instant to create an underwater shockwave traveling at 1,500 meters per second that slammed directly into the steel hull. Snap. The ship's keel, the load-bearing spine of the steel colossus, bends like a toothpick. The electrical system shuts down. The screech of steel mingles with the relentless wail of alarms tearing through the night. The attackers believed they had brought down the monster, but in reality, they had just inadvertently triggered the most brutal execution network in history. Operation Praying Mantis 2.0 officially began. The Persian Gulf is like a pressure cooker. The Sasson oil rig, a massive offshore structure, has become a C4ISR hub, the command center coordinating all of Iran's drone swarms and coastal artillery. To clear the way for the fleet, this tooth must be pulled. 3:20 a.m. 50 nautical miles away, the USS New Jersey, a Virginia-class Block 5 submarine, launches a silent strike. Instead of a torpedo, it deploys a specialized unmanned underwater vehicle. This predator glides to the ocean floor, locating the fiber optic cable connecting Sasson to the mainland. With a decisive cut, the UUV completely isolated the drilling rig. Sasson is now a digital island, silent, blind, and isolated. 3:25 a.m. Despite a bent hull and a faltering power system, the USS Jack H began its counterattack. The moment the main power system failed, the Starshield satellite network in low Earth orbit immediately picked up the emergency signal. The Starshield network instantly established a space-based data link, allowing the Lucas to lock onto Tomahawk targets even before the Aegis system had fully restarted. Thanks to this data stream from space, the Lucas, despite being on the brink of failure, could still lock onto targets for the Tomahawk without waiting for the Aegis system to fully restart. 3:30 a.m. The crux. The Lucas did not go into stealth mode. The captain ordered the AN/SPY-6 radar to remain active, emitting a weak and intermittent signal. On Iranian sensors, it looked like a giant gasping for breath. It was a digital siren song, a calculated decoy designed to lure the Iranian fleet out of its lair and into a killing net they could never have anticipated. While the USS Jack H stood alone in the darkness, it was far from isolated. 150 nautical miles away on the other side of the horizon, the supercarrier USS Abraham Lincoln had been on combat alert for 48 hours. If the Lucas was the fist delivering the blow, then the Lincoln was the brain, the central hub of a killing network that determined where and when that blow would strike. 3:43 a.m., the trap had sprung. The Iranian command, deceived by the Lucas's radar decoys, unleashed a nightmare, a gigantic swarm of hundreds of Shahed-class suicide drones and explosive-laden unmanned surface vessels. These low radar cross-section, low-value targets saturated the Lucas's radar horizon, creating a chaotic cloud of phantom signals. Hiding within that electronic storm, Iran launched a Qatar anti-ship cruise missile. The missile skimmed the water surface, exploiting the very chaos of the drone swarm to serve as a shield obscuring the Lucas's vision. 3:48 a.m., the AEGIS Baseline 10 operating system. The first naval system to integrate deep learning AI assumes full control of the battlefield. In exactly 0.1 seconds, the AI's target discrimination algorithm kicked in. It cross-referenced the kinematic behavior, thermal signatures, and radar variations of each target point against a database of millions of known flight trajectories. The AI instantly filtered out the junk targets and flagged the sole real threat, the Qatar missile lying in wait. 3:50 a.m., the Lucas's VLS launch tubes fire in rapid succession. It sweeps the target with machine-like precision that no crew could match. SM-2 missiles are launched in salvos to clear the swarm of drones like a kinetic broom. Simultaneously, the system designates an SM-6 to destroy the Qatar. The SM-6 intercepts the cruise missile 5 miles from the ship, turning it into a massive fireball blazing in the pitch-black night. The swarm is shattered, the jamming shield destroyed, but the enemy continues to escalate. While the SM-2S swept the long range, the remaining suicide drones slipped through the firewall and charged straight at the Lucas's radar tower. This was the moment HELIOS performed its first real-world test. A 60-kilowatt laser beam sweeps across the horizon, burning the sensors of the most stubborn drones at close range, protecting the ship's brain before they can cause any damage. This is merely a prelude to the true power of the light weapon. 4:03 a.m. Realizing that the swarm attack had failed completely, Iran escalated the situation with its silver bullet, the Khalij Fars hypersonic anti-ship missile. They executed a salvo launch, firing 2 missiles in rapid succession toward the Lucas at speeds exceeding Mach 3. The first missile was a tactical sacrifice. It was programmed to detonate prematurely at high altitude, creating a localized electromagnetic pulse. The objective was to disable the Lucas's sensors and create a digital blind spot in the sky. As the first explosion painted the horizon with an eerie blue light, the second Khalij Fars missile plunged into that blind spot at a speed exceeding 1,000 meters per second. Due to the curvature of the Earth and EMP interference, the Lucas's onboard systems were completely blind to the approaching predator. But Lucas wasn't fighting alone. Commander Lincoln had activated his extended eyes. At 30,000 feet, an F-35C Lightning II was silently tailing the MQ-25 Stingray. Thanks to support from the MQ-25 Stingray, the stealth refueling station lurking right on the edge of the combat zone, the F-35C has enough power to keep its EOTSIs on high alert. 4:08 a.m., termination network activated. Using the MADL link, a stealth-oriented, nearly jam-proof communication channel, the F-35C transmits fire control level target data to the USS Abraham Lincoln. The carrier's computers process the trajectory and immediately feed the direct fire solution into the USS Lucas's weapon system via the strike group's CEC network. 4:15 a.m. The Lucas performs a launch on remote maneuver. It fires an SM-6 into the pitch-black, empty void. The Lucas has absolutely no radar signal on its screen, but the SM-6 is guided perfectly by the F-35C's remote eyes. The interception takes place 40 miles from the ship beyond the radar horizon. The SM-6 slammed into the Khalij Fars in the upper atmosphere, destroying the hypersonic threat before it could reach the ship's defense perimeter. This is the pinnacle of sensor fusion, a stealth ship destroying a killer it never actually saw. 4:20 a.m. The battlefield shifted from kinetic firepower to the invisible and deadly realm of electronic warfare. Realizing that the missile strikes had failed, Iranian commanders pivoted to a terrifying contingency plan: autonomous swarms. Hundreds of small drones were switched to a mode that severed all radio communication, with their base flying entirely on pre-programmed AI and internal inertial navigation. This rendered traditional U.S. jamming tactics useless, as there were no signals to interfere with. Simultaneously, Iran's coastal EW units initiated the Home on Jam protocol, attempting to reverse engineer and lock onto the positions of U.S. aircraft by tracing their own electronic emissions. Above the battlefield, an EA-18G Growler from the USS Abraham Lincoln's Air Wing prepared to retaliate. 4:25 a.m. The Growler pilot activates a high-risk cyber attack maneuver known as the DRFM malware injection, utilizing the NGJ's massive power. The Growler pumps a self-replicating malware directly into the drone's visual processing chips. This malware takes control of the computer vision algorithm, rewriting their digital reality in just a few microseconds. 4:28 a.m. The swarm's digital reality is inverted. The brains of the drone swarm are tricked into seeing the calm sea surface as a high-value U.S. warship, while the USS Jack H Lucas is effectively erased from their sensors, leaving only empty water. 4:32 a.m. The result is complete kinetic chaos. The Iranian drones, blinded by their compromised vision, suddenly plunge violently downward. They crashed into the Persian Gulf at 200 miles per hour or collided with one another in midair, triggering a chain of consecutive explosions. The Growler didn't need to fire a single kinetic weapon, yet it turned the enemy's most advanced autonomous swarm into their own underwater grave. 4:40 a.m. The final phase of the counterattack known as Alpha Strike begins. The Iranian surface fleet, realizing that its electronic jamming and swarm tactics have been neutralized, attempts to employ the hide in the chaos tactic. They maneuvered their frigates and missile boats to weave through the massive civilian oil tankers, using these neutral vessels as human shields to block the U.S. attack. To further complicate the radar picture, they deployed massive scattering clouds, creating a dense whiteout on the radar screen to blur the lines between warships and merchant vessels. 4:45 a.m. The execution order is transmitted from the Combat Information Center of the USS Abraham Lincoln. A squadron of F-35C Lightning IIs enters the combat zone from the south. Each stealth fighter carries an AGM-158C LRASM missile. This is not a traditional missile. It is a stealthy, semi-autonomous hunter that does not rely on GPS or active radar, both of which are being heavily jammed by Iran. To secure a safe passage for the F-35C squadron, the submarine USS New Jersey from deep underwater activates its VPM vertical launch tubes. It does not fire at the surface fleet, but launches a salvo of Tomahawk Block 5 missiles targeting the enemy's S-300 coastal air defense batteries. This strike forces the enemy's radar to pivot, creating a safe gap for the LRASM missiles to slip through without being intercepted from land. 4:48 a.m. After launch, the LRASM squadron begins an AI discussion via the secure internal data link network. The missiles operate like a pack of wolves, sharing sensor data in real time to solve tactical puzzles. They use the automatic target recognition algorithm to match thermal signatures and optical profiles against an internal 3D database of every type of vessel in the Iranian Navy. 4:52 a.m., the LRASMs decide on their targets. Completely ignoring civilian oil tankers, the missiles split into specific attack roles. The strike is a masterpiece of synchronized destruction. Missiles 1 and 2 strike the upper deck of the Iranian flagship at a shallow angle designed to vaporize the radar masts and communication arrays, rendering the ship paralyzed and blind. Just a fraction of a second later, Missile 3 performs a steep climb before plunging vertically through the thin deck armor to detonate inside the engine room. The Iranian flagship was torn apart from the inside out. Not a single radar alarm sounded. The stealthy LRASMs had slipped past the jamming and shields like invisible ghosts. The center of the Iranian fleet turned into a flaming heap of rubble before they even realized they had been targeted. 5 a.m. The battle screen remains a mosaic of debris and heat signatures. Despite the devastation, a high-speed signal finally emerges from the smoke. An Iranian fast attack craft, having lost radar and coordination capabilities, launches a blind, desperate attack at 45 knots. It aimed its unguided rocket launchers at the starboard side of the USS Jack H. The Lucas coordinated the power distribution system to prioritize energy weapons, bringing its most advanced defensive systems online. A low-profile turret on the deck swiveled with surgical precision. This was HELIOS, the 60-kilowatt high-energy laser system. The invisible laser beam locks onto the enemy's missile launcher. Within 5 seconds of thermal saturation, the steel casing of the missile launcher's launch pad undergoes molecular structural breakdown, glowing white, before the solid fuel inside reaches its ignition point. 5:05 a.m. The ship is incinerated by its own weapons before it can enter a 3-mile range. The strike is silent, absolute, and highly technical, a merciful shot that wipes out the final kinetic threat on the sea. But imagine a scenario without gunfire, a digital execution. The Iranian fleet's cooling control system is a closed-loop system. Once locked down by malware, the heat from their own engines and ammunition creates a massive furnace from within. Instead of missiles, cyber warriors took control of the cooling system amid the 50-degree heat of the Gulf. When the system fails, the entire ammunition compartment self-detonates due to internal overheating. No targets on radar, no smoke or fire from the outside, the entire fleet self-destructs from a single line of hijacked code. In the year 2026, the most destructive weapon is no longer explosives, but an enter command from halfway around the globe.